Welcome to our coverage of ASUG Annual Conference in Sapphire Now 2014. We're in the ASUG News Studio, sponsored by NTT Data. I'm joined by Sheldon Smith of Sask Power, and we're here to talk about Sask Power's mobile journey. Welcome to the studio, excuse me, welcome to the studio, Sheldon. How are you doing today?
Thanks very much, glad to be here.
Great. So, give me an overview of your business goals with your mobility project, and what were you looking to accomplish at Sask Power?
Sure, so for us, mobility is really a lot larger than mobility. It's largely more focused around end user enablement. So, like many companies, we've got lots of very large systems. Of course, SAP is one of them. And with those come very large business processes. And what we often find is because the systems have grown to be so complex, there's oftentimes very simple day-to-day things that casual users want to access, and they're just not able to. Traditionally in IT, when the business asks us to enable that functionality, it usually results in a 6-12 month project, millions of dollars, a lot of effort. Mobility has become a way for us to basically extract a very simple use case from that business process, build a mobile app against it, and sometimes roll it out to the business in 6 to 8 weeks. So really, fundamentally, it comes down to end user enablement to those simple use cases within a business process.
Right, and obviously mobility, simplicity was a big thing today at the keynote. And they talked a lot about Fiori, and what sort of software did you use at Sask Power?
You bet, I mean, the keynote this morning was very applicable to the work we've been doing at Sask Power. When we started with mobility, we started out using the Sybase Unwired platform tool set, which was provided to us by SAP. That basically gave us the environment and the infrastructure to build our own custom apps. So last year in 2013, our team was able to build 10 custom mobile apps using the Sybase Unwired platform, and able to roll those apps out to production to various groups. So that was a big success for us. In addition to the custom work that we do with SUP, we've also, of course, been installing Fiori, and that's actually about to go live in a couple weeks. Right. Fiori for us just fits very well. Why would I have my team of developers build an app when I can just install an app out of Fiori? So the synergy is there. So our process is really three things when we roll out mobile apps. We will either build the apps ourselves, we'll buy them and just install them, like Fiori, or we'll have partner with the vendor and build the app collaboratively and install it into our environment.
Right, so you really must have believed in Fiori, Fiori, you paid for it, and now you're here today, you're going to get a credit back for it. So.
Absolutely, it's a huge win, because we were, I mean, quite frankly, Fiori as a platform was a good investment for us anyway.
Right.
So now the fact that it's a no-charge product is a fantastic thing.
Yeah, that's a great development.
It's the cherry on the cake.
Exactly. So, share some tips, with prioritizing project delivery that you've experienced.
The prioritizing has certainly been a tricky thing for us. I mean, when we started with mobility, one of the biggest challenges was, I don't know that the business, or even those of us in IT, really understood what the art of the possible was. So when we sort of asked, let's prioritize the order in which we build apps, no one really knew how to prioritize those, because they didn't really know the value they were going to get. So the approach that we actually took was, I sort of jokingly call this a stealth innovation approach, where internally we actually looked for, what are the use cases that we feel we can build out? And let's just prioritize those such that we'll give each business unit a little taste of what's possible. So we gave our HR folks some apps, we gave our transmission and distribution folks some apps, just to show them what the art of the possible was. From there, basically, once they all got a little taste, this year is all about opening up the floodgates, them starting to ask for functionality, and now working with the business units to determine which ones are most value and which ones are most important.
And how do you decide whether to custom develop an app or go with something that's out of the box?
Well, if something is available out of the box, generally that's where we go. We certainly, architecturally, we have a philosophy of leverage, buy, build. So if we can leverage something we already have, that's what we do. If we can buy it off the shelf, we do that. And finally, as a third option, we custom build. So that's our architectural principle that we abide by.
And what has been the reaction from your users with the new mobility and the Fiori and everything like that?
The business users have certainly been excited. I mean, one of the things, of course, that we often get beat up for is the speed which it takes us to deliver functionality. The real benefit with the mobile functionality in apps are that there's a pretty rapid and agile turnaround. So for the most part, we've had cases where they've asked for something and we've delivered it to them in an app in 6 weeks. So they've been very happy with the speed by which we can roll out and deploy functionality.
And what's it like? What are some tips for how you get the users to become users?
User adoption has been a very tricky thing for us. When we first started our mobile journey, I was quite sure that it was going to be like from that movie Field of Dreams, if you build it, they will come. that all we needed to do was build an app and give it to them, and they were just going to embrace it wholeheartedly. And for the most part, they have, but not always. There's an interesting app that we build, we call it the Fleet app. So we have these guys that drive a Sask Power vehicle around all day, and at the end of the day, they're required to enter their fuel costs and their mileage into SAP. And the way in which they do that, the business process, is at the end of the day, the field technician comes in, he writes his mileage and his fuel costs on a piece of scrap paper, he goes back to his desk and types that into an email, which he emails to the secretary, and the secretary then enters that into SAP. And they do that every day, and they've done that for years. And they're quite comfortable with that process.
Right.
When we became aware of that, we thought, this is a great candidate to mobilize. So we actually built a Fleet app, which is a very simple mobile app that has 3 things. It has the truck number, fuel charge, and mileage. It's all they have to enter. And we built that app, put it on an iPad, and we gave it to 2 of the field guys to trial for us. Right. And we gave it to them for 6 weeks. We heard nothing. We just thought, they're so quiet. They must be just loving this thing. There's no defects. There's no bugs. We should go check on them, though. Because they've got our iPads, and they're loaner iPads. We want to make sure they haven't ran over them.
Right.
We go back and we check on the Fleet guys. Well, what they had done was they had gone back to their old business process, but they gave the iPad to the clerk. So they still wrote their mileage on a piece of scrap paper. They still typed it into an email and emailed it to her, but instead of her going into SAP, she was using the mobile app that we had built. So we thought that was actually a quite interesting story about user adoption. Wow. It's not just a simple case of build it and give it to them and they're going to run with it. There's a little bit of change management required as well. Now since that time, that became more of a management issue than an app issue or a technology issue. There was obviously a significant efficiency to be gained by them using this new process, this new technology. So they have since gone back to using the app that we provided to them. I think probably by virtue of they were required to by their management. Because there was obviously an efficiency to be gained. Why have that admin person doing that work when it can be done directly from the truck?
And then have you gotten feedback from them now that they're forced to use it?
Yeah, now that they've actually used it, they're actually quite happy with the app. They've come back with some suggested changes, and we're actually doing a version 2 of that app to make it even better for them.
Great.
So now the adoption's happened.
Great. So just to wrap it up here, what are some skills that a company might need to deploy these sort of things that you're doing?
Absolutely. I mean, one of the interesting things, of course, as we built mobile apps, is they're not just going against SAP. As we build mobile apps, some of them are going against SAP, and a lot of them are, because SAP is very core to our business. Some of our apps go against Lotus Notes applications. Some of them go against back-end databases. Some just simply write and copy files from a LAN structure. So what we have found is we need a very holistic approach to our developers. So on our mobile development team, we're basically made up of a person who actually was a former ABAP developer from our SAP team. We migrated him over to our mobile team. So the good thing about that is he understands SAP, he understands how BAPIs and BADIs and the fields and the integration works. It's fantastic. But that alone isn't enough. We also need front-end developers, a user experience technician who understands look and feel, need to understand the emotional attachment that a user has to an app, because it's not just about fonts and colors. So you definitely need a cast of characters, both technical user experience and people that understand the business. Great.
Well, that's great advice, and we really appreciate you being on the ASUG News Studio stage and representing Sask Power, Sheldon.
Well, thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
All right, and thank you for joining. Visit asugnews.com for more SAP stories.